I am Jim Collison and live from the Gallup campus in Omaha, Nebraska. This is Gallup's Call to Coach with special guest Curt Liesveld, recorded on January 10th, 2014. Call to Coach is a resource for those who want to help others discover and use their strengths. We have Gallup experts and independent strengths coaches share tactics, insights, and strategies to help coaches maximize the talent of individuals, teams, and organizations around the world. If you have questions, comments, or contributions during the show, we do have a live chat room available, brand new chat room available for you, or if you're listening to the recorded version, you can email those questions to us after the show, coaching@gallup.com. And don't forget to visit the Gallup Strengths Center. That's just gallupstrengthscenter.com for all your coaching resources and training needs. And just a little hint, we actually have a brand new Strengths Center coming to you in just about 10 days. So if you check back to the Strengths Center there 10 days from now, you'll see a brand new look to that. So gallupstrengthscenter.com for all your coaching needs. You can also catch the video in both streaming or downloadable audio for offline listening to past shows over at coaching.gallup.com. Jeremy Petrosini is our host today. Jeremy works as a learning and development consultant with Gallup here on the riverfront. Well, there on the riverfront, I should say. Jeremy, it's great to see you, and welcome back to another Call to Coach.
Thanks, Jim. Yeah, it's great to be back and just kicking off the new year. So, again, those of you who have been listening over the last 6 months, we've been doing these calls twice a month. And, again, part of Gallup's vision that we kind of reiterated last year, we're kind of a year into this, of really taking strengths to the world. So we've got just under 10 million people, about 9.7 million that have taken Strength Finder. And we're excited, again, not that they're just discovering their top 5, but that there are coaches empowered around the world. And as Jim said earlier, there's people in from all over today, so we're excited to share this with you. So some of you may have heard a previous, not you can go back on and listen to it, but Curt Liesveld, who's been with Gallup more than 16 years, really kind of a resident expert on strengths, leads a lot of our strength certification programs, which, again, up until a year ago, the only way to be a certified strength coach was either through a Gallup client organization or come work for Gallup. And so since then, we've trained several hundreds of individuals who are now in the process of getting certified to really be external partners with us. That our goal is to reach over 100 million people with strengths, and we know that we need about 1 million coaches to do that. So, Curt, welcome. Great to have you back on the show and just hear your thoughts and expertise today.
Thanks, Jeremy. It's good to be back. I even when I haven't, I've been on most of these calls just as an interested person, like people who are on today, and have been in some of the chat rooms answering questions. So I like Call to Coach. So it's fun to be on again.
Well, Curt, one of the things, you and I get to partner a lot together outside of these calls too, but one of the things that I know you're most passionate about, and when you think about even just this idea of when people can play to their strengths, it's helping them do what they do best every day. One of the passions you have and what you've committed to is really just coaching coaches. And so I'd love to hear your thoughts. We're a year into training these external coaches. You spend a lot of your time either in the classroom leading these either 2-day or 5-day training programs, or then doing follow-up one-on-one coaching calls with those individuals. So why don't you share with us, just kind of 1 year in, what have you noticed? What are you noticing about the unique components of these coaches that are coming at us, common qualities? Just what are your insights that you can share to the coaches out there today?
Yeah, I guess this is something I've mentioned to the people who have been part of the programs. Part of why I love leading these coaching programs is I love the audience who comes. I really find that I have a real attraction and an affinity to people who are interested in helping other people grow and change. So, and those are the kind of people that have really seen come to these programs. Now, these people have various levels of experience. Some people have been at this probably just as long as I have. They've been using the Strengths Finder as long as it's been invented by Don Clifton, around 15 years or so. And so obviously very experienced, kind of understand the nuances of this tool. But there are kind of what I'd call strengths novices. They're enthusiasts, but they're just beginning the strengths journey. And
Sure.
I guess one of the things that I've noticed is that this is a learnable language. People can pick this up. It's not something that's impossible to learn and grow. And so that's to me is really encouraging, because it is. I think working with the Strengths Finder is not necessarily simple. That's I think what makes it valuable is the kind of the complexity and the nuance of it. But I've really seen that people have learned how to do this, and especially when I've been involved with people at these accelerated programs, to kind of see the change that occurs from day 1 to day 5. And so I guess that's one of the big takeaways. The other thing that I am reminded of as a coach is that I don't know if there's anything more difficult than helping people change. And in reality, when you're talking about helping a person grow, you're in essence talking about helping them change their behavior.
Yeah, talk more about that, Curt, because I think, again, I think there's been a misnomer for years where people say, Clifton Strength Finder exists to kind of discover. Now have these new top 5 words, but there's more to it than that, right? And I think this is where many of the coaches out there are saying, I want to help people impact their performance, impact overall life. Unpack that more as far as change, transformation, what the power is behind this, or what you're hearing from these coaches.
And I think that's where there is some kind of confusion sometimes. They hear that the name Strengths Finder, and they get Strengths Finder results, and they assume that it's the finished product. And it's really not the finish line, it's the starting line of development, and kind of helping people understand who they are. And as we've said this before, people really don't change that much with regards to the parameters of who they are as people. That's something I believe pretty strongly. But the reality is that we live in a world that is constantly changing. We kind of have moving targets in life. It's not the same. When we're 20, the targets that we're aiming at are different than now I'm 60. So even though I'm the same, in a sense, in many ways, the same person I am that I was when I was 20 years old, there are moving targets. So we have to figure out how to do things in a slightly different way. And I think that's the challenge, but also the great opportunity of coaching is helping people figure out how can I use the raw material of who I am as a person and aim that at the challenges and opportunities and problems that I have in life, and to do it in an effective way.
So Curt, I like just kind of your perspective on that, because again, it's the work that Don Clifton and others did. Obviously, you were able to jump onto that pretty early in your career and the development of the tool. But the goal was to take thousands of talents that exist and really bucket them into these 34 signature themes, or kind of buckets, and that transformation are going to change from talent to strength. I want you to kind of talk about that a little bit, because I think that's terminology. Obviously, we talk about it in any of our books on strengths. That talent is one thing, strength is another. It's a little bit of a misnomer sometimes that people say, if it's a Strength Finder, is it that get rich quick or get skinny quick, kind of pill? I took Strength Finder 25 minutes, now I'm strong. But talk about that a little bit, maybe even educate people that maybe are newer to Strength Finder on what differentiates talent from strength, and the way the tool is kind of utilized to help people develop or move potential to performance.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think both are important. I think talent is obviously the innate nature of who you are. It's people talk about how you're wired, what makes you tick, but it's really, and that's the internal invisible stuff that's inside of each one of us, and it's hard to assess because who we are is kind of dictated by what's within us. And so everybody has talent, but not everybody has transformed that talent into strength. I think that's an important thing. Nobody takes the Strengths Finder and gets a report that says, sorry, you don't have any talent. Everybody has patterns of how they think, act, and feel. And I think the important part of the definition of talent is that it's a pattern of behavior that can be productively applied. And can be. It has the ability to be productively applied, but it can't be assumed that it is productively applied in every case. And I think that's where a coach comes in to help a person productively apply who they are in the situations where they need some kind of result or outcome. And I think what the Strengths Finder adds to this dimension is clarity about the person, about the how they are most likely to succeed. and by using these things. And so that's one of the reasons I started thinking about talent in its raw form and what it might look like in its more mature form, this kind of journey from raw to mature. And I think it's part of the growing process, is moving from kind of raw talent to more seasoned talent. In fact, I kind of have this definition that I wrote here. Raw talent is talent that is uninformed, unexperienced, tends to be more self-oriented, and is often unproductive. You can have talent that is unproductive, and it's not a strength then. More mature talent is well-informed, practiced, tends to be more self-oriented, and is highly productive. So that is really, I think, where coaches, why we are here. We're trying to help people use what they've got to get done what they really need to get done. And if we only pay attention to what people need to get done and ignore who they are, I think we miss kind of a relevance to our coaching. If we only focus on the person and we don't really focus on the important things that they have to do in life or in their work, we really miss the results that comes from that kind of we waste that human capacity. And so that's an important thing to me, the capacity of humanity and how we can kind of leverage that and capitalize it person by person. And I think about the kind of changes that could occur when everybody gets a little bit closer to capitalizing on their capacity.
So I want you to dig into that a little bit more, because I think there's so much with what you just said, that whole idea of just because I possess a talent, and even if it's validated through the Clifton Strength Finder, for me, woo is my number 7, right? So I've been able to see my full 34 report, see those 6 through 10, those supporting themes. Woo's my number 7. You're saying I naturally possess that. So like writing my name with my right hand, I do it without thinking about it. But if I don't intentionally regulate it, that could just be raw and misused, or not productively applied and work toward a strength. Unpack that a little bit. Maybe just use woo, for instance, of how it could be raw or mature.
I think in order to see woo the talent versus woo the strength, I think woo the strength, there will be some productive results from that. It means that it's made something better or made something work. It helps. All those kind of positive words. And so I think the result of woo that's been transformed into a strength, I mean, I see it a lot of times, it's people who know a lot of people.
Yeah.
They've kind of built this broad social network. These are people that they have some contact with, people they can call on to help. So the result of that is people who are intentionally use this ability to kind of be comfortable and effective in meeting new people for some purpose. And so I really think that is the point. It has to make something better. And I think sometimes people use these talents as an excuse for non-performance sometimes. It's more about why I can't do this because I don't have this theme, as opposed to how can I use this particular theme and transform it into a strength. And its strength is really, I think it's something that's going to be observable, measurable. There's going to be some kind of result, a positive result to something that comes naturally to you. Yeah,
no, that's great, because again, I think that kind of truth you shared at the start of the call, the talent, you're saying everybody, you're not just saying a portion of the human population, but you're saying 7 billion people have talent. And do they believe in that? Do coaches who come alongside of them help them say it might be raw, it might be potential, but by focusing on it, developing it, it can turn into strength? And I think that's the beauty for coaches out there is, right? I mean, they play a role in really helping people turn that lie into a truth and really begin to be more productive and have a higher level of satisfaction in their lives and in their careers than they've ever had before.
And I think that's part of what we have to do as coaches, is we have to help people really believe in talent.
Yep.
I mean, I have people ask me all the time, how do you make this strengths-based approach stick?
Yep.
In a team, in an organization, in a community, and I really believe that it begins with a belief that talent, who someone is going to be critical to their success. And it's easy to say that.
Mm-hmm.
It's easy to say I believe in talent, but do you operate in that way? Is that where you start when you're working with a person? Or do you start with, here's a bunch of stuff I want to teach you, there's a bunch of stuff I want you to do? Or do you really begin with the person, who they are? I think that's what a belief in talent says. I'm going to start there because that's the only way I can truly help this person be successful, is understanding what comes naturally to them, how they think, how they relate, what motivates them. When I understand that, then I'm ready to begin this journey of helping them do what it is that they either want and need to do.
Yeah. No, I think that piece too of do they believe in it. Talk a little bit more about that too, because I think, we've had individuals ask questions. All right, I want to understand strengths more. Again, the goal of these calls is to really inform and educate coaches, whether they're within an organization, independent. I know we've had a lot of independent consultants, coaches that have gone through our training. What are the keys to using it? So not just learning about it, but what are the keys to using it? And I know you talked a moment ago just about needing to believe in it, but talk about that a little bit more of what does it mean even for you personally? Where did you transition from, boy, this strengths finder tool is pretty unique, to really seeing the value of it in yourself, in your relationships? I know even your wife, Gallup in education, and has seen strengths transform teachers and students and school systems. Where did you see it where you really became a believer, or maybe something that coaches need to think about for, do I really grasp the impact of this versus it just being one of many tools in my toolbox?
I think I had an intuition about this before I was exposed to it, and I think there are many people out there like that. I think a lot of times people at Maximizer are somewhat kind of drawn to this philosophy or this kind of approach to development, but I think it really started to stick in me when I really joined the Gallup organization, and when I saw an organization that kind of not just talked about the theory of a strengths-based approach, but they really lived it out. And so I think that's part of it, being part of an organization that really practiced it. I think that's critical. And so if you're trying to kind of get this philosophy of development into an organization, I think that's why it's so critical that you get the buy-in of leadership, kind of starting at the top of an organization. And part of this is really kind of how do I help people that don't really believe this yet believe it? We should have had Paul Allen on the strengths evangelist here.
Right. Yeah.
but that's really what it is. It's almost helping people believe, and so that takes some time. That takes some discussion. That takes giving people some facts. It means giving people some stories from your own life. I think the other thing that's really made this stick in me is, and I say this when I teach programs, I spent every day for the last 15 years either thinking about or talking about either my own strengths or someone else's strengths. Mm-hmm. And there's something about doing this every day that I think really makes this stick, not just in your mind, but in your heart. And I think it has to be both places. This has to be not just a feeling, but it has to be you have to understand it conceptually and emotionally, because I think that's really there's a kind of an emotional piece to this and a conceptual, but doing that every day and having to explain this every day to somebody.
Yeah.
Either in a room of a class, a group we're facilitating or leading, or one-on-one coaching. I think that's where this gets deep in us. And then the challenge is, how do I translate that to the people that I'm working? But I think until you're convinced of this, I don't think you're going to be as effective.
Yeah.
You have to. I don't want to say drink the Kool-Aid, but you really have to have a strong belief in this for you to kind of have the kind of influence you can have. And so that's a great question to ask coaches. Do I really believe that a strengths-based approach to development is the best one? And not just a kind of a quick yes, but can I explain why that's the case?
Well, and you hit on something there, Curt, too, that I think, oftentimes questions come up. I know there was at least one question from Ann in the chat around, is it realistic, or can you really get corporate leaders to buy into a strength-based approach, right?
That's a great question. I would say, is it easy? No, it's not easy.
Right.
I mean, when I talk about leaders, I think leaders are the most difficult people to influence, but they are the most important people to influence. That's why we need all kinds of people in this strengths movement. We not only need strengths coaches, I think we need strengths salesmen.
Yeah.
People who can be quite influential, almost in a more direct way, in a more powerful way. And I'm probably not as good at working with CEOs. I think that might be something you're probably better at, Jeremy. You've got some ways of doing that. I'm probably a little better at coaching people who are kind of willing followers. But I think there are coaches who are more direct, who are more decisive. That's why we need all kinds of people who are strengths enthusiasts, people who are committed to the strengths movement. Some of us are more willing to kind of work with kind of like preaching to the choir, but others of us really need to kind of work with those people who are undecided yet about this, who really, once we get them on our sides, that's, I think, when the world can truly change. So working with leaders is hard, but it is absolutely necessary if this movement is going to continue and proliferate around the world.
Yeah, and I know Leslie was even asking about leaders within smaller businesses, and I think that piece that you just hit on, Curt, and even my experience as well as yours with working with execs, working with leaders, I think it comes back to that piece you were saying too about do they believe in it? And oftentimes, I had a conversation with the CEO earlier in the week and had the opportunity to work with her month, and it was real quick. She had seen us do some strengths work with some of the high potentials. We run a leadership program for their organization, and she just said, I need you to do this with my team. What was interesting in that conversation with her is she just said, I don't really like my top 5, but I need you to come help my team to figure out how we can work together. So I appreciated her excitement toward what could happen with strengths, but there was some real kind of discovery I needed her to make to really believe in, does she agree with her themes? Is she able to name them but then claiming them, really owning this is who I am and I'm okay with it. And I think that's where with the domains, sometimes leaders will think, what are the issues there? If I'm more, relationship based versus strategic, is that good or bad? And obviously in strength-based leadership, that's what we unpacked a lot, and I know you talk about this, but leaders not needing to be well-rounded, but to find their niche to say, where am I sharp that I can surround myself with others? But I think that self-discovery for them, and I know you've seen that too, is key for them to own it and then get excited about it.
I think that's often when they start to buy in, when they get some personal kind of, they get a taste of how this can make me more effective as a leader, how I can kind of go about this role of leadership within the context of who I am. I think a lot of times leaders think they have to be a completely different person to be successful.
Yeah.
And I think the reality is, if you're trying to be somebody you're not, you're probably not going to be as good as you can be. So how can you, and I think when leaders get that, when they experience that, when they get the feedback from the people they're leading that we really appreciate you more when you are who you are, it does kind of open some, it lowers the guard and they buy in a bit more. But it is not easy, because leaders by nature are influencers. They don't like to be influenced. But that's why we have to have some people who are willing to kind of go against that initial resistance from leadership, because that's how I think organizations are changed, is when leaders are changed.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Jim, are there questions out there? I know sometimes in the chat there's other questions that pop up. I want to make sure we leave room for that.
Yeah, no, been a lot of questions. This has been a very, very active chat. One of the things I did want to say is that we, as we get bigger, we have to get smaller, and so on our Facebook page or our Facebook group, so if you go to facebook.com/groups/call-to-coach, we're really trying to make a movement to get our local, our local coaches to connect locally. And so I've created some lists out there all around the world. You can put your information in there, and we're just trying to get you to connect. We do this call to coach. We can't reach everybody and answer all your questions every single time we do this. We do it for about 2 hours a month, and it's just not possible. We know you guys need to connect locally, so jump out there on Facebook and get that done, and let's get some local connections going. Add that information in so that people can track you down. Bunch of questions, and some around the coaching aspect of it. I know you guys both, since you guys both lead our coaching classes that we do, they're wondering, how come we don't come to Chicago?
Huh, that's a good question.
Yeah. And then
Maybe we will.
well, and let me ask you this same question, Curt, whenever it's convenient. I'd like to know what upcoming coaching sessions Curt will be conducting. Will he be in Washington, D.C. in February, or does he only do classes in Omaha?
I do coaches all over. I've kind of been in London, and so I don't just stay in Omaha. I'm not exactly sure which, if I will be in, I don't know exactly what my schedule is, but I'm all over. And here's the thing about these programs, though. We have different people lead these programs, and they are all very good. These are not kind of personality kind of driven programs. The curriculum that's been built is very robust, and many people can kind of lead this effectively, and we've shown that. So, but I go all over the place, and really this year I really hope to do as many of these as I can fit into my schedule.
Okay, and then let's ask, so is there an infrastructure in place to ensure that the million coaches are consistent with their message year over year? Since coaches are all talented in different ways, their approach may come across as different.
Boy, that's an important question. That's something I'm really kind of a stickler on. We talk about this, the Strengths Finder as being a language. Mm-hmm. And I think for a language to be effective, it has to be consistent. So one of the things that I'm really interested in having some impact on is making sure that we all understand the language of strengths, the themes. And I'm kind of toying with the idea, and Jim and Jeremy are kind of just at the beginning stages of having I don't know what we're going to do, but we'll take a session and kind of focus on a theme a day for a webcast, a half an hour. We're going to think about Achiever for a half an hour. We're going to make sure that we're crystal clear about what Achiever is and about what Achiever is not, and do this with all 34. So I really think there is some value in making sure that there's a consistency in terms of the tool, a consistency in terms of the approach, and that's really what we're trying to create with these coaching programs is we know that people are going to go about this in a slightly different way, but we want the content of what people get to be consistent. So absolutely, we really are very serious about that.
Yeah, and I'll add a couple nuggets on that too, Jim. As Curt said, I mean, Gallup couldn't be more adamant about it. It's actually why for decades we've said no. Sorry, if you want the content and the expertise, come apply for Gallup, and if you get the job, we'll train you and teach you. But we realized, our own team of coaches, we're not gonna have the capacity to reach the world the way we want to. So that question though of how do we then educate people with accuracy, as Curt said, we're continuing to launch online resources like this. The call he mentioned of trying to do a Thursday theme day where we can kind of dive into the 34 themes and really document that where people have it. It's also why with our new, but then also just curriculum that's available. For the first time ever, we launched those strength coaching kits, which for $500, we have the insight of how to create strength-based organizations, knowledge around the themes, resources really that never existed before outside of the hands of a Gallup facilitator or a Gallup client. And our commitment to do that was so that people have the right understanding and knowledge behind it. And we are going to have, I know you alluded to this too, Curt, kind of, Paul Allen, is our strengths evangelist. Paul was the co-founder of Ancestry.com and has been with Gallup the last year to really help us reach the masses through a lot of apps and media and different things that we're doing. Paul is going to be joining us in the coming months. We'll share a lot more of kind of both that vision, but how we want to continue to just create not only just that we'd have a list of 1 million coaches, but really where that feels like a sense of network, tribe, conferences, annual strengths days, where we kind of get together and celebrate and learn best practices from each other, and where Gallup can continue again to put into your hands via training or resources or apps the ability to have consistency behind what we mean by the strengths and how people can do that.
That idea, Curt, of Theme Thursday blew up in chat. By the way, they went crazy when you.
That's a good sign. That's a good sign.
That's a very good sign. No, and I think it's the question we get asked all the time, right? People want to talk about their individual strengths on Call to Coach, and that's really not the platform for it in a lot of ways. We're focused on other things, but I think we'll partner with you and get those theme Thursdays, get them rolling, and an opportunity for folks to kind of focus in on each individual theme that is out there. Okay, what about online training, Jeremy? Let me throw that to you. Has Gallup thought about doing this stuff online at all?
Yeah, and I'll actually even throw it back to you, Jim. Not only have we thought about it, but we've been trying to just toy around with different ideas of how we create different levels of education. I know Curt's led for years at some of our nonprofit clients certification that we've done just online. And the reason I say throwing it back to Jim is, we've even got a little mock studio right now on campus where we're really just trying to think of online learning, what that looks like for the future, where people could log in, not just see, Curt or my face or whoever would facilitate it, but where it'd be really interactive. So I don't know what else you want to tease out with that, Jim. Obviously, it's a future component. So guys like me who lead with futuristic get excited about where it's going. Yeah. It's not a next month thing, but the idea or the answer is yes. But
yeah, it is. It's a 2014 goal to kind of build out this, virtual learning studio, I think is what we're calling it, and an opportunity for folks to be able to come in and be taught these things, to create a classroom that's as engaging for the instructor as it is for those on the other end. Online training is very, very difficult to do, and to make it a meaningful experience. Curt, you probably speak to this probably better than anybody. The atmosphere that's created in a coaching session, right? When we're doing this training live, and those folks are there together, it's very powerful, right? I mean,
absolutely. The interaction. I mean, if we can create a studio where I can kind of see and hear the individual participants like they can hear me, that would be exciting, because I think that's the most powerful learning environment. And so I don't think we'll ever stop doing live learning, but I think if we can get a little better at this kind of chronic learning, online learning, whatever you want to call it, I can stay home more as well as then. That might be great too.
Well, not everybody can travel, so yes, we are working on some online. 2014 hopefully will be the year for that, and we'll have more things. 2014 is a pretty exciting year. We got a lot of stuff coming up and a lot of new stuff coming, so I'm pretty excited about some of the opportunities that are out there. Let me ask you this question. Is there any plan to have a site where all certified coaches might have a link to them or to their business, where someone new to strengths or strengths novices can find in their area someone who can help foster the business relationship with them, or help coach them in strengths? We have a couple things already done this way, Jeremy, don't we?
Yeah, we do. So even just in the site we kind of keep pointing people to is our landing page of that GallupStrengths.com site. On there with the coaching link, you can already see, I think there's 10 or 15 individual coaches who have already been certified, have gone through kind of a pretty rigorous process to do that, and purposefully we'll put on there their location, where they're at. One of the things we're starting to do too, and this is kind of the behind the scenes for people that have gone through our formal training, is Paul Allen, again, our strengths evangelist, is creating a network with those individuals where he's even encouraging them to use the Meetup app. So if you've got an iPhone or Android phone where you can actually download that app of Meetup, we're trying to really create a lot of local learning environments kind of for coaches, but then just even for strengths enthusiasts. The piece too, I know there's a lot of people out there who are managers and thinking about a strength-based approach for managing their team. I know they get a lot of value out of this call. And that's one of those things too, Jim, for 2014, where separating out managers from coaches. Some of them obviously think like a coach, but we just launched a new manager toolkit to really help them develop who they are as a manager, and are launching in February our first public high-performance management course. So again, taking a strength-based approach to management is kind of one of those three key characteristics that we found, really differentiate a good manager from a great or a high-performing manager.
Very good. Curt, you started a little bit of a firestorm, because they want to know now where they find out more information about Theme Thursday. And it's gone from thinking about
Tell them we have an internal meeting next week.
Next week we have an internal meeting, so I'm relying on the technological expertise of you and you and Jeremy to kind of help me do this, because I'm just kind of old school, but I know about themes, and I want to talk about themes. I could spend every day talking about themes. I really could, and so I'm just trying to kind of capture this intelligence in some way and passing it along so that we're all on the same page. So I'm excited that people are excited.
Very good.
And
Go ahead.
I was just
John.
going to say what I love about it too, Curt, and just sharing this, Jim, for the coaches out there. It's interesting how even in our coaching courses, when you have people that have said they've been leveraging Strength Finder for 10 plus years, when we ask them the simple questions, so, all right, of the 34 themes, which ones are the best, which ones are the worst? It's a trick question because all 34 are meant to be positives. All 34 are meant to point people to something they do better than anybody else in the world. What happens is some of these themes, because we don't own them or we're not as familiar with them, we stick more to kind of the basement or the raw side of it versus the balcony or the strength side of it. And so I think the value of Curt really kind of diving deeper into what do each of these themes mean, and a healthy dialogue through chat of people that own that theme, maybe have pretended not to own it. I mean, I know people who have taken Strength Finder and significance was their number one, and so they bought another book and took Strength Finder again, hoping they could hide it, Had a chat with actually a head of HR this week who, thankfully, before she did that, she had told me that, and we really helped her claim that theme where she's been able to share that with her senior exec team and see the real value in it. So, Curt, I think that's going to be huge from that education and value of individuals and coaches seeing the power and the positive power behind all 34 themes.
And I think if we get a lot of people on these calls, I think we'll also learn more about this theme other than just what I know.
Yeah.
I think we'll get some that's part of my learner. So I'm always there's always something out there I don't know. And so I really want to kind of broaden the conversation about this to share some things that I know, but also hopefully make some new discoveries that really we can pass on. Because most of the things that I've learned about these themes, I've learned them from the people who have them.
Yeah, and Curt, share real quick the nugget, because I think this is what will happen through those calls too, the nugget of identifying a theme poster child.
Yeah, I think in order to really appreciate a theme, you have to have a person, you have to have a face of a person who has that theme that you like. Someone that you admire, someone that has really, that has productively applied it. As long as you don't have a theme poster child for a theme, you're going to have a hard time seeing the value. I think a lot of times we have theme problem children.
Yeah.
People we know and don't particularly like that have this theme. So by association, we have a negative perception of a theme.
Yeah,
so
it's like when my wife and I named our two kids, right? There were certain names we threw out just because she broke up with me in high school, so I'm not naming my kid after her, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's where we have to really think about all 34 of these, just like names of people. Who is somebody that represents that theme in a way that just we value it? We see the power behind it.
At its best, really trying to figure out for all 34 themes, how can I just see all of the pieces and factors of how these things, and also not only thinking about these themes one by one, but what are some themes that might go well with this theme, that might work well, or what are some themes that might kind of compensate for or complement? Well, we could get into that in a short half-hour program. We could talk about a lot of try to talk about the same things, but the kind of the multi-dimensional nature of a theme. We do that in our courses, but there's just not enough time in a course to kind of get to the kind of depth that some people might want and need to get to for each of these themes.
Curt, the number one question that's going on right now is, what are your top 5?
What are my top 5? My top 5.
Make him guess his top 5. No.
Responsibility, relator, maximizer, learner, and analytical.
And with your strengths pairs, if folks wanted more information on that, where would they go to find those?
You can go onto Twitter, CSF Guy, Clifton Strengths Finder Guy, CSF Guy. I'm on Twitter and on Facebook, and you can just search under both of those. And that's where I try to just share little nuggets. And I've got stuff on raw and mature themes. I've got stuff on parenting with themes. I've got my earlier stuff. You're going to have to scroll a long ways back to get to the pairings that I wrote, but I wrote those on Twitter and Facebook.
And then there is Jim too. I know some of our coaches know about this, those that have gone through one of our certification courses. But whether you go through, we've got 3 different 2-day courses, and then a kind of intensive, which is a 4.5-day course. We do include in 2 of those different courses a great kind of resource that's a bound book. Again, it's one of those things that people are saying, where else can I get that? Unfortunately, that's one of those things that that really kind of the in-depth knowledge that Curt and others really kind of impart into them. That's one of the resources that they get through the course.
Very good. Well, let's kind of bring. It always goes so fast, but let me kind of bring. We have some exciting things. I'll mention again. We have a lot of good stuff. You mentioned strength-based parenting, and we have some material coming out just on that here towards the end of 2014. So we've got some things stacked up for you all year long, and of course, we'll remind everyone to take full advantage of the resources we have available at the Gallup Strength Center. That's just GallupStrengthCenter.com. Just a reminder, 10 days from now, or look on January 20th, 2014, we have a new look and a new product coming to the Strength Center. So you want to get out there, have a peek at that, GallupStrengthCenter.com. Send us your questions or comments. And actually, many of you did during the show. Appreciate that. We actually approved about 50 new people to the Facebook group. The goal there on the Facebook group is to get local, guys. I'll be honest with you. With Paul Allen's vision for local meetups, the Facebook group is the way we get that done. So we have some in the file section on Facebook. We have local groups. Put your information in there so that you guys can start kind of gathering locally as we do this. That's the number one question we got on the show all summer was, how do I find people local? And we now have that available through the Facebook page as well. You can send your questions or comments to us via email, coaching@gallup.com. You can also catch the recorded audio and video of this show and all the past ones, as well as the links to our Facebook and YouTube page out at coaching.gallup.com. And if you're listening live, you're actually already there. It's just over to the right-hand side. All those things are available for you. Jeremy, let's tease out a little bit about what we have coming up.
Yeah, so we're going to continue, and again, thanks to many of you out there who have given us great feedback throughout the last 6 months. Through 2014, we're going to continue to run these calls every 2 weeks. There are some additional things that we're brainstorming, as we teased out already, kind of the Theme Thursday idea and getting through all 34. We also want to be launching a call just for managers. So again, kind of thinking specific about the role of manager, those of you that manage people in your day-to-day. We're going to be launching that. The call coming up here in a couple weeks, and Jim, I'm going to kind of kick it back to you, because one of the things we've heard feedback on is people like to hear from their peers. They like to hear from Gallup experts like Curt, who spend their time coaching, but they also love to hear just kind of, is this something that we're just excited about as coaches, or are there kind of global influencers, leaders, thinkers who are passionate about Clifton Strength Finder as well? So Jim, why don't you talk a little bit about our next guest that'll be coming up on the 21st of this month?
Yeah, January 21st. Really excited because I'm a tech guy, and Robert Scoble, he's their tech evangelist for Rackspace. And we had Kathy Kirsten on the show, back in December, and she was from Rackspace as well. And Robert is a tech pundit and is everywhere in the world of technology. And so you may have seen his website, The Scobleizer, and he's just all into technology. I am as well, which is why we're doing Call to Coach the way we do it. And of course, I have followed Robert for a lot of years, and it'll be a real privilege to kind of interview him from his strengths, right? Not from his technology, but to find out more about him from his strength. And he's agreed to come on. We're going to call it a Strength Spotlight, and we're kind of excited about kind of launching this new idea as well, where we kind of don't always talk about coaching, but this is strength specifically. These Themes Thursday idea would also fit into that Strength Spotlight concept. We're doing some things in our education division as well around Strength Spotlight. So, Jeremy, really excited about some of the things that are coming up here on our YouTube channel.
Well, for those of you who heard the interview earlier in the year with Paul Allen, again, Paul being Gallup Strengths Evangelist, kind of the guy driving this for us, his journey from Ancestry and some other tech companies he started, his intro to Strengths was because of Robert. So Robert kind of bragging about Strength Finder and what it meant as a powerful tool. So kind of a cool connection there too.
Very cool. Very cool. Well, we want to thank you, Curt, for coming out. Great to have you on. You're the second timer on Call to Coach.
Terrific. It's fun to be on. Thanks.
All right. We appreciate you coming out, and we want to thank everyone else for coming out, and all the resources available, coaching.gallup.com, and appreciate that. Thanks for coming out. We'll see you next time.